We've all heard of virtual reality, but what about virtual body organs? New advances in computing power are allowing scientists to create digital versions of working brains and livers that try to model everything from drug damage to the way we act. Let's start with your liver. It's one of the largest organs in the body. It weighs about as much as a pineapple. Without it, you would quickly die. It helps break down nutrients in our food into stuff your body can use, and it clears your blood of toxins. That means that how new drugs, which are tested on animals and in clinical trials, affect the liver is key to their being ruled as safe or not. So why make a virtual liver?
In drug discovery and also in drug injuries that happen to the liver, quite often these are undetected and happen, at a late stage of the drug development. And it turns out that quite a few molecules actually fail because of liver injuries. And if you were able to predict it early on, that could, save the cost of that, and it could save both animal usage and injuries to human subjects.
That's Vijay Chandru, co-founder and CEO of Strand Life Sciences. His company, based in India, created the virtual liver. To do that, he took about 10 years and enough people to pull in about 3,000 scientific papers into the logic of the model. That model actually simulates a real liver, as it would be if it was working in the body. And then he can mess with it by adding digital versions of drugs into it to perturb its function. So that's the virtual liver. It's complicated, sure, but what about the human brain?
The components in the brain are just wildly different from each other. At least 100 to 1,000 different types of neurons, and very limited understanding of exactly how each one goes where.
That's Terence Stewart, a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Waterloo in Canada. He worked on a brain model called SPAWN. That's the brain and tongue saving acronym for the Semantic Pointer Architecture Unified Network. SPAWN takes its 2.5 million virtual neurons and puts them to certain tasks. It has a virtual eye to see the task it's given, and it has a virtual arm to draw its response on a virtual pad. Here's why it does that.
The idea is to say that, if we can figure out what all the individual components of the brain are doing, we can start to say, how does the behavior of the brain arise from all those little individual things? So this has sort of been a dream for decades. That's been the Holy Grail of a lot of cognitive science research. The new thing that we're able to do now is because computers are so much more powerful. What we're able to do is we're able to say, if we can simulate what an individual neuron is doing, and simulate a whole bunch of those, and connect them together in the same sorts of ways that we think they're connected in the real brain, if we're right about all the details, we should get the same sorts of behavior that you see in real brains.
And just like the liver, this virtual brain is meant to show normal function, just as if it were in someone's head. Or perhaps you could give it a condition like Parkinson's to see how it might react to virtual drugs based off of real ones to treat it. But here's one problem. Even the most sophisticated virtual liver and brain today don't get close to the differences between real brains and real livers. No two brains are alike, just as no two livers are alike. And you have to simplify out many of those differences in the models to make them work. Dr. Stewart said that projects like his and Dr. Chandru's liver are us sort of dumbing down nature to understand it. But if you could simulate a whole population of livers or a whole demographic of brains, you get closer to making tools to personalize medicine for actual people. That means no more virtual organs in isolation. It means a whole virtual person. And Leroy Hood is making 100 of them in the next 9 months.
My own view of science is quite different from most of those who are doing virtual organs or cells or whatever it is, because there what you're doing is you're averaging these data to come up with a prototype that you can model. And those models can be incredibly useful. But my argument is the essence of what humans as a population are our differences and our diversity.
No, he's not creating a small army of humanoids with working nervous and immune systems. He's turning actual patients into data engines. That means that each person generates his or her own unique data cloud, but each cloud will be made up of the same raw data streams. There are 6 types. Here they are. 1. Personal experiences like colds, injuries, or changes in medication. Those are all the environmental parameters that affect us. 2, each person gets a complete genome sequence, looking specifically in that sequence for 300 variants that are, in Dr. Hood's words, actionable for that person. 3, the gut microbiome. This is mostly just to see what's going on in your gut, because the area is so new to science. 4, a set of measurements to focus how your nutrition interacts with your body chemistry. 5, the quantized self. This means tracking daily vitals like respiration, heart rate, sleep cycle, calories. It's basically what fitness trackers do today. And finally, 6, organ-specific blood protein fingerprints with a focus on the brain, heart, and liver that Dr. Hood thinks can show transition from a healthy brain, heart, or liver to a diseased heart, brain, or liver.
And of course, one of the grand challenges in the study is how you translate data to humans.
So Dr. Hood has hired what he's calling coaches that can talk patients from data to doing something about any red flags that get pulled out of their clouds. But all of those clouds make for very data-stormy skies. If just one of Dr. Hood's pioneers, that's what he's calling the first 100 test subjects, generates thousands or millions of data points in a 9-month trial, what will happen when 100,000 subjects are pumping out 25-year-long clouds of illnesses and from their organs and from their genomes? That's the size that Dr. Hood is hoping for in the next leg of the experiment.
A big part of this is going to be cloud computing, and a big part is going to be making cloud computing more affordable than it is today. But cloud computing has infinite potential for storing raw data. And in many ways, we'd really like to store the raw data because in 5 years, we're going to have much better algorithms for creating the metadata sets that are far more meaningful. So we have to figure out how to solve that. I mean, and right now, frankly, the way to solve it is to have enough money to be able to do it. The assays for our patients now cost close to $10,000 per patient for the 9 months. In 5 years, it'll be 3 to 4% of that because of the declines we see coming in gathering most of the data types anyway. I can see in 5 years the human genome sequence being $100 if we get third generation single molecule sequencing. That seems to be firmly in place now.
Okay, let's say he's right and it gets a lot easier to generate and store all of that patient data. How will people interact with their cloud?
So my feeling is most people aren't going to want to look at their data stream at all. They're going to want to look at the metadata that's been focused on actionable possibilities. And my view is your cell phone will give you all of that information. It'll take those billions of data points and it'll list the top 10 actionable opportunities you have, or 20, or whatever we want, and you can click and you can get a beautiful explanation of what each of those are and what the remedial actions might be. And physicians are going to have similar kinds of devices. They aren't going to be able to deal with all the data. They will deal with the metadata that poses the actionable possibilities in such a way that they can make clinical judgments about what's good and what's bad.
So just what conditions does Dr. Hood predict will become actionable in the next 10 to 20 years? Diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, metabolic syndrome, obesity, neurodegeneration, like dementia, they're all on the list. And that's a big list of killers and quality of life degraders, to be sure. But Leroy Hood is extremely confident in his new system. So confident, he tells me, that there's already a personal data cloud in formation with his own name on it.